building RAG systems, retrieval augmented generation systems, is one of the most basic use cases when it comes to leveraging UI to do something really useful. Large language models are not trained on everything, even though they are trained on a lot of data. But when it comes to customized or personalized data, it needs to be given or fed our own data. That way we're able to leverage a large language model and be able to personalize or be able to create chatbots that would understand, in this case, our own data. Because that is the most basic, I would say, use case for large language models when we talk about RAG systems. Now, obviously, to be able to build a solid RAG system, you need to go through a process of understanding how the data, your own documents, to load your own documents, and to put your documents through the pre-processing process, which is the most basic step. Essentially is the transformation of your data, PDF file, CSV file, or anything that you may have, into smaller chunks that are then vectorized to create these vectors, which are then added usually into a vector space or vector database. And that is indeed a very important step. And on top of that, obviously you need a large language model that will be able to interpret that information or take in that information along with the query and prompt and everything, and be able to find the documents that are related to the query that is passed along. And then the large language model is able to reason around that data. Okay, so that's essentially how it all works. Now, when it comes to the central piece here, which is the large language model, we have many options. But now I'm going to show you how to use something that is freely available, in this case, a large language model, that you don't have to pay in order for you to be able to use it. So you can have RAG systems that are strong, but are local, and most of all, you don't have to pay to be able to use the large language model. So in this video, I'm going to go through the process of showing you exactly how to take Ollama, Llama 3.2. You could use any other model for that matter. We're going to use Ollama, Llama 3.2 as a language model, large language model, I should say, to be the centerpiece of our RAG system. By the end of this video, you're going to have a RAG system that is not using OpenAI large language models. It's using your local language model through Ollama. In this case, it's going to be Llama 3.2. And the beauty also, besides being free, is that you can always swap the large language model, because that is the main centerpiece, but everything around it, it stays the same. So if you decide that perhaps there is a different model you want to use instead of Llama 3.2, you can use something else. You can just swap the large language model and everything will still work. And that is indeed the beauty of Ollama, in my humble opinion. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. This is the simple RAG system hands-on, or at least the overview of what we are going to be putting together. So the idea here is very simple, is that we're going to use LangChain to pass through the PDF file to load that, and then use LangChain's character text splitter to split that into small chunks, as we have discussed. And then we're going to use Ollama embeddings. This is the important part. Ollama also has a model for embeddings. That is going to allow us to embed all of this information and put that into a Chroma DB database. And then what will happen is that we're going to pass in a query, and we're going to use, again, LangChain's multi-query retriever that will be able to do all the things that it needs to do to transform this query into embeddings, of course, and search the Chroma database with all those embeddings. And then pull out the most similar pieces of information or data or documents, and then put it all together, relevant docs, query, and prompt, and pass that through a large language model, which in this case, again, is going to be Llama 3.2, and of course generate the response that we so desperately need. So this is a RAG system now using Ollama embeddings and using Llama 3.2, which is part of Ollama. Now, key point here is that for all these embeddings, Ollama embeddings models, and this large language model, we can swap these with whatever else that we might want to use, and the whole system will still work. Again, I'm repeating myself, I know. That is the beauty of Ollama, is that once we have the system set up, we can swap the embeddings, we can swap the large language model, these models, with whatever else that we want, and it will still work. Okay, so this is what we're going to be putting together next. Right, so first things here, I have this B BOI PDF. We've seen this before. So you should have access to all of this anyway. It's just these beneficial ownership information report that I found online. That's what we're going to be using for our RAG system. Okay. Now, one thing I've also added here is this requirements.txt. So this has all of the requirements, all of the things, the dependencies we need for all these projects that we're going to be working on. So I kept it here so that we can run, so also that you have it here. That way it's easier. You don't have to watch me always go ahead and type things and importing things and so forth. So you have, I may still do that, but you have this requirements.txt with all the dependencies. So the first thing I want to do, of course, is go ahead and run that real quick. So pip install.r requirements txt, like that. So it's going to go ahead and get all the dependencies. That was pretty fast. That's very nice. And we should be good. All right, very good. And next you can see that I have also created this PDF rag.py. This is what we're going to be working in. So I have a few things that we're going to do here. So I'm going to copy and paste in a few things. So first, we need to ingest the PDF files, and then we need to extract text from that PDF file and split into small chunks. So essentially the same things that we have been talking about in our presentation. And then we're going to send those chunks to embedding model, saved embeddings, perform similarity search, retrieve, and do all sort of things. Okay, so that's the overview of what needs to be done. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Now, the first thing is I'm going to import a few things here. So this is from LangChain community. Now, this is working now because I installed our rand requirements.txt, which included LangChain community and other things. So important that this happens. All right, so we're getting the unstructured PDF loader and this online PDF loader here. Now, we may use one over the other, but you have both. And next, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to have the doc path and the actual models. So the model is going to be Llama 3.2, and the path through the document, just have one here, is data BOI PDF. That's what I'm doing. Okay, so let's load the PDF file. Okay, so I use the unstructured PDF loader and pass the doc path, which is this one here. And then data is going to get all of the loaded information, right? Okay, so now I can go ahead and actually print for preview. So we see that things are actually working, and you know that things are actually working. I'm going to print just about 100 items from our content, from our data. Let's go ahead and run this fast. So in the back end, we should be able to do all the things like getting the information and load the document. And should be able to see soon here something. Okay, very good. So we went ahead and showed a few hundred words or 100 parts of the content that comes in our content data, which is the data that we loaded, which is our PDF file. Very good. So we see here beneficial ownership information, and that is good. So just to test it out to make sure everything is working. Okay, so that was the end of PDF ingestion. So we're able to get that PDF. Next, we're going to extract the PDF and do some chunking, essentially. Okay, so for that, we need a lot of help, of course. So I'm going to go ahead and get all of the imports. So what happens here is that, first of all, we're getting Ollama embeddings. This is a wrapper of Ollama through LangChain. That's the beauty of LangChain, because we have a lot of wrapper classes and methods and so forth. And then we have this recursive character text splitter, which will help us to recursively split our text. And then, of course, we have the Chroma DB through LangChain. All right. So first of all, let's go ahead and split things here. Keep in mind, all we're doing here is independent of large language models we're using. This is across the board. This is how you would do anytime you want to create a RAG system. All right, so we splitting everything. The chunk is 1200. So we're saying for each 1200 chunks, we're going to split. So we're saying each chunk will have about 1200. So we're saying each chunk size will have about 1200, and the overlap is going to be 300. So the greater the overlap, the better, because that means we are conserving the context. Okay, very good. And then chunks, we pass this text splitter, which should have all that information. Actually, this is all from the data that we loaded from here. And then we use text splitter and split the document. So now we have those chunks. And if you want to see, we can go ahead and print things out real quick here so you can see. Okay, so you can see that we have the number of chunks. First, says here somewhere, number of chunks is 42. And we have the actual chunks, table of contents, and all of that. So this is good. That means things are working. And the beauty of using LangChain is that it adds metadata to all of these pieces. You can see now we have this metadata was added called source is going to be data BOI PDF, which is real good. Okay. Otherwise, we will have to do all of that manually. Okay, so we know this is working. Let me go ahead and comment this out. Okay, now it's time for us to add into our vector database because we have those chunks and we need to add them. But how do we add to vector database? Well, first we need to do something. First, we need to create those embeddings. If we go to Ollama, if we go to Ollama.com and go to models, you find many different models. One of the models called embeddings, say embeddings, you can see that we have this nomic embedding embed text. We also have this MXBay, embed large, and many others. Okay, we can use whatever we want, but this is the one we're going to be using. So click here, and you can see it's a high performing open embedding model with a large token context window, which means it allows you to put a large amount of text for embeddings for it to be able to embed. Okay, so this is what we're going to be using for our example here. That means we'll have to pull this in code. And so let's go ahead and do that. First, I'm going to go ahead and import Ollama, and then I'm going to encode, pull in this embedding. Now I already have this, so it's just going to go ahead and update. I'm just going to put this anyway so you have. And then what we need to do is to actually create the vector database. And it's very simple. All we do is say chroma from documents and pass the documents chunks. Remember, the chunks are here. And the embedding. Now we're using this Ollama embeddings and passing the model nomic embed text to generate the embeddings. So all of that is being passed through our chroma from documents function. And of course, we collection name, we just pass a name, simple rag, that's fine. I'm not going to take too much of your time. I just want to let you know about something that I'm very proud of and I'm very excited about. So about a few months ago, I started putting together this community for entrepreneurs, for programmers. So anyone who's actually wanting to use the tech skills they might have in terms of know how to program to put together with AI-based solutions to actually build solutions. Real world solutions for businesses using AI and code. One thing to keep in mind is that this community is not just a place where you go and watch videos, 100 hours of videos, and then you're left alone. That is not the case. The case is that you will have, of course, guidance, videos, tutorials, and all the tools that you need so that you're able to grow and actually build things. So this is going to be a hands-on collaborative environment where you will have other people like-minded who are here or there to actually build something to solve real-world problems. So when you join the AI Guild, you're not going to be feeling stuck, confused, or feeling this sense of overwhelm because, truth be told, there's a lot of information out there, and that's a wonderful thing. But the problem is we don't have a place where that information can be condensed into something that's actually useful. And that is the reason why I was eager actually to build such a community, because a lot of students of mine have asked me if there was something similar to this, and they couldn't find it. And so I decided to build it, and now it's open for you to come in and enjoy. Now, this is very selective in a sense that I don't want to have people who don't want to be collaborative. This is a place for collaboration. It's a place for growth, experimentation, and really drive home the skills that you have of programming, as well as taking AI, because AI is here forever pretty much, and merge that together so that we can actually build something that serves people. That is the whole thing. So if you're a person who is interested in such environment, I'll be more than happy to have you join us and start building real cool, amazing stuff together. Okay, let's go in and get started. All right, so continuing, let's go ahead and do the retrieval side of things. So how do we retrieve things and so forth? So first, let's go ahead and pass in a few things here. Now, we need some help with LangChain, where we can create prompt templates, as you see, and also a way of parsing whatever comes in or goes through this Rag system. We'll see in a second here. So that's why I'm importing all of these. And while we're here, let's go ahead and also import a few other things, such as the chat Ollama, because that's what we're going to be using, that model, as our large language model. And then now we have this runnable pass-through. This is part of what we're going to see later, part of chaining that happens with Ollama, with LangChain. We have this multi-query retriever, as you see. It's going to help us with a lot of things, because we're going to be able to retrieve documents. We're going to be able to give a query and use a large language model to sort of write a set of queries and pick up the best one to pass through the large language model. So this is all optimization under the hood. Okay, let's go ahead and set the model that we're going to be using. So this is how set model. Now this is a wrapper, Ollama wrapper, and we pass the model, which is Llama 3.2. All right, so we have the large language model already. Now, as you know, we're going to go ahead and use this simple technique to allow us again to generate multiple questions from one single question, and then retrieve documents based on those questions, which allows us to get the best of both worlds. So this is the query prompt that I'm going to use here. So you can see here I'm using the prompt template. The reason why is because we can then pass things like input variables, which is going to be the question that internally will know how to pass around all these pieces of data. What you can see here, the template says you are an AI language model assistant. Your task is to generate 5 different versions of the given user question to retrieve relevant documents from a vector database. By generating multiple perspectives on the user question, your goal is to help the user overcome some of the limitations of distance-based similarity search. Provide these alternative questions separated by new lines, original question and pass the question, which is going to be passed along. So this prompt template here, it's going to be passed along soon through the retriever, and it will know how to deal with all of that. This is beautiful because we're using LangChain and it does everything automatically for us. All right, so now let's go ahead and actually create our retriever. So our retriever here, we're going to use the multi-query retriever from large language model, and we pass a few things. Okay, we have the vector database, so we need, of course, the vector database that we created here, and then we're going to transform it into a retriever. So a retriever will know how to retrieve things from database. It's going to return something, and we need to pass the large language model because it needs to know how to take that item, all those information retrieved, and how to process that. And with that, we also need the prompt. So you remember in the diagram, when it comes to once we have everything set up, we'll retrieve information, we'll retrieve pieces. In this case, we're retrieving pieces that are similar to the query that we're passing along, which is inside of a prompt. And then we need the large language model, which is going to drive everything. It's going to use all that information, compact everything, and be able to answer those questions. All right, very good. And next, we're going to use create the RAG prompt. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. So essentially, it's another prompt that we can use. This is our question that we pass along. Okay, a RAG prompt, this is just another template we're going to pass. It says answer the question based only on the following context. So we're going to pass the context and the actual question. This context and everything is going to be passed along, as you will see later. right, internally with LangChain. Okay, so once we have that, we need to create an actual chat prompt from all of that. So we use chat prompt from template and pass this template here. So these wrappers here internally will know how to pass in this context, how to pull in the question and so forth, because these come in as just variables. Okay, and once we've done that, that's when we then put all of that into a chain, which is going to go through the process of pulling in all the pieces that are put together so that we can get the result. So essentially what it means, what is happening here is that we pass the context. We know the context is going to be the retriever. Retriever will know, as you saw here, how to get things from the database. It knows the large language model that's going to be driving everything. It also knows the prompt which we created here, which has a few input variables we're passing along. So we're putting all together, and then we have the question, runnable pass-through. Let's just say, just pass through, don't mind much. And then we have here a chain to pass in a prompt, and then we need the large language model again. And then at the end, once we have the result, we're going to pass that through a string output parser. So essentially to parse everything out to make everything clean and nice. All that is done, we can just start asking questions. So I'm going to comment this out. Let's start with the main question at the top here. Say, what is the document about, for instance? Let's go ahead and run this. So this is it. This is our full-on RAG system. Let's go ahead and run and see if this works. Okay, so done loading, done splitting document, done adding to vector database. Very good. Okay. It says here, the question, the answer says, the document appears to be a set of instruction for reporting beneficial ownership information, especially the BOIR, filing instructions, provide guidance, and blah, blah, blah. Very good. That's exactly right. And so now we can pass questions. So that's one question. Let's see if I go and comment this out. I want this second one. What are the main points as a business owner I should be aware of? Let's go ahead and run again. Now this is very inefficient because in a way it goes back and does the splitting and adding everything, but that's okay, just to show you how things are done. Okay, look at this. As a business owner, you should be aware of the following main points, and it gives us all the points. And let me do another one here. Okay. Based on provided text, here's how to report beneficial ownership information, BOI to FinCEN. Complete filing, and there we go. All right, so it is indeed working. We were able to put together a full RAG system, be it we could improve in terms of repetition of, splitting and do all the things, that's okay. But you can see that it works. We use a large language model, in this case, one large language model from our own, in this case, Ollama, Llama 3.2. And then we used embeddings also from Ollama, just like that. Again, we can just split around, we can change the models that we're using and leave everything as is, and it should work. Very good indeed. So I hope you're seeing the benefits here. Number one, again, remember, is that we don't pay anything. We can run this as many times as we want. We're not paying anything for any hits to the API, in this case, OpenAI or anywhere else, because this is local, which is really, really awesome if you ask me. So I hope this is helpful, and take this code and change it around, make it your own. Maybe you have a different PDF file that you want to converse with, or whatever else that you need. So go ahead and play around. This is your code. You have access to it. And so just do it. All right, so we finished this PDF RAG. It works fine. And so I decided actually to show you here. I have the other piece of code, which is exactly the same. That's the same thing. But I call this PDF RAG clean. So essentially it's the same thing as what we've seen. It's just that it's a little bit cleaner and looks better. Okay, so essentially at the top here, we have some configurations and blah, blah, blah. And we have this doc path. We have this model name. So this created constants at the top here, and vector name as well. Okay, so we have a function here called ingest PDF. Essentially that we just pass the doc path and it does all the things that it needs to do. We have the split documents function. This is exactly how you should do it, right? Split everything into modules. And then we have this create database and it returns a vector DB, and we create a retriever and everything. And we're passing along the templates and all of that. So essentially, like I said, what we've seen before, but now in a more cleaner way. And then we have this create chain, which creates the chain for us as we saw before. The code is still the same. And then we have this main. So now we just call, for instance, get the data by calling ingest PDF. And then we get the chunks, vector DB instantiation, the LLM instantiation, and retriever. And then we have the chain, and then we have our question, right? So we can add a different question here. Let's go ahead and run this. We should see the same thing essentially, but just different code, which is cleaner. Okay, so it's doing all the things. Okay, so there's a lot of good logging that's happening, and voila. So at the end, it responds according to instructions. This is what we have. So nothing out of this world, the same thing, but this is way better because it's way organized. So you have both and you are set. And because it's always nice to have some sort of a user interface, I have another version you have access to called PDF Rag Streamlet. And in this case, when we run this, we should be able to have a user interface using Streamlet. So essentially, obviously, it's the same code. It's just that we have at the bottom here a Streamlet. I mean, look, see, setting up the title and user input and everything else. Okay, you can look at this code, but it's not out of this world. So let's go ahead and run this so I can show you real quick. Okay, there we go. So now I can, let's see. So it's going to go generate response. First it's running the load vector DB, and in a few moments, hopefully we should see an answer. Okay, so to filed for beneficial ownership information, there we go, all that information. Very good indeed. And I can say, what's the penalty for not filing? There we go, and it gives us the information. All right, so there you have it. Now you have different versions, and this is the user interface version that you can see that we are conversing with our Rag system, with our document. So I hope this was helpful and you found this video helpful. One thing I have to say though, that I just noticed that over 80% or 90%, I would say, of people who watch my videos are actually not subscribed to this channel. Please go ahead and subscribe. That will make me very, very happy and also very grateful. Thank you again if this was helpful, you like this content. And also I really like to hear from you. So always leave me comments, tell me what you think of this video, maybe other ideas of other videos or topics I could touch on. So thank you so much again for your time. Don't forget to subscribe, and till next time, be well.